we're going to talk about how to get to more autonomous actions in surgery. And actually, Dr. Park's lecture is a great segue into this, and hopefully you'll see why a little bit later. I think we need to talk a little bit about what definitions of artificial intelligence are. We're going to talk about a journal that's just over a year old called Artificial Intelligence Surgery. We're going to talk about the difference between the concept of artificial intelligence in surgery and artificial intelligence surgery without the preposition. Basically, artificial intelligence in surgery is just artificial intelligence in the preoperative phase and the postoperative phase. Artificial intelligence surgery is artificial intelligence in the operating room, and that's autonomous actions with devices moving autonomously, helping us through surgery, doing parts of the operation on their own. To understand that, we need to understand what weak artificial intelligence and strong artificial intelligence is. It's not like a robot just walks into the operating room and does the whole operation. It's going to be many, many steps. We have to discuss whether we even want that future. So to understand that, we have to talk about the 6 levels of autonomy, which are based on the 6 levels of autonomy for self-driving cars. And then, hopefully, at the end, I don't have much time, we'll talk about how do we get to more autonomous actions. So this is the journal, this is the website. The first issue came out about a year ago, in 2021, about 14 months ago. Actually, the 5th issue was just published in December. Our latest impact factor is about 2.25. It's unofficial because we're less than 2 years, but we're going to formally apply for an impact factor in December. This reminds me of the operating room, of the chaos in the operating room, which we're used to. So AISjournal.net is the website. So first off, what is surgery in 2022? We also need to, or in 2023 I should say, we need to talk about that. Surgery is not just what the surgeon does. It's open surgery, minimally invasive surgery, laparoscopic, robotic assisted, but it's also interventional endoscopy, notes, natural orifice, transluminal endoscopic surgeries, also interventional radiology, like interventional cardiology and interventional radiology and things like that. So this just shows you an example of artificial intelligence in surgery. This is artificial intelligence for decision support in surgical oncology. You can also use things like machine learning for figuring out postoperative problems. This is just an editorial that talks about this concept a little bit that you can find in our journal. This is the Gartner hype cycle, which is used mainly in business with new technologies. Endoscopy is really the first moment that we had a screen or even a form of computer in between the patient and the doctor. From that, we got laparoscopy, robotic surgery, and notes, and we're really very excited, but we went down towards the cross of disillusionment, as Dr. Park just mentioned. What we want to do and what we really are able to do are 2 different things. But luckily, at the same time as the surgeons were getting depressed, the computer scientists have really been making inroads into machine learning, deep learning, natural language processing, and computer vision. That said, we really haven't seen many examples on the market of that, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. You can see that the hype cycle follows the publications exactly. When you put in artificial intelligence in surgery, we peaked in around 2013, and we really bottomed out around 2017, but as you can see, we're on the upswing, and it's become quite a hot topic. Just very quickly, artificial intelligence encompasses machine learning, which are algorithms such as supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning, which is really trial by error, which is what mainly robots are going to be able to do to learn from our errors and learn from what we do in the operating room. I should mention that Da Vinci, every time you do an operation, they're recording it. They're getting instrument priors, and I just thought about this the other day. I wonder if they're also capturing visual data. I don't think they're able to, but I know they are recording instrument priors, where your instruments are throughout your whole procedure, and it's being sent to California. So that's going to be able to create some autonomous actions in the future. Just that we need to know that this is happening. Deep learning is a part of machine learning based on the neural cortex. It's many different layers of decision making, so it can mimic the human brain. It's a form of machine learning. Computer vision falls within all of these, and robotics, automation, artificial intelligence, really. So you can see that it's all involved here. There's just a brief overview of AIS surgery. We don't have time really to go further into that. What is computer vision? How the computer sees. These are beautiful pictures we've been seeing for years. out of Strasbourg, but we haven't really seen anything on the market yet. There are some companies now in France that do have things on the market that are quite nice. So it seems like finally computer vision is making some nice inroads. These are just some other examples. There's actually a nice example I don't have time to show you, but on your iPhone you can download something called the Surgeon's Jarvis. This is a character in Marvel that his name is Vision. So you can get the link between computer vision and why they chose to name it Jarvis. Jarvis was the name of the butler of Iron Man, who eventually became Vision. But if you download this on your iPhone for $49.99, you can do a video of your gallbladder and it'll tell you whether you obtained a critical view of safety or not. I don't have time to show you the video, but it's been out for over 3 years. So you can imagine in America, if you have a common bowel duct injury and you didn't use Jarvis, you might be exposed to some legal problems. So this is a white paper that talks about a lot of these issues. We got together the editorial board members, and we talked about a lot of these concepts and definitions of artificial intelligence and autonomous actions in surgery. And we differentiated and we talked about the difference between weak AI, which is really just an automatic action. You hit a button and something automatically happens with no sensing capabilities, no interpretation whatsoever, and strong autonomy, which is really independent decision making. So I have examples of all these different levels, but again, we don't have time, so I'm just going to briefly say level 0, no autonomy. Level 1, really the lowest form of autonomy is the telemanipulation of a robot. That's the Da Vinci robot, because there's still a human controlling it completely. Level 2, believe it or not, that's something like the stapler, the Signia stapler that has a sensor in it. If the tissue's too thick, it won't fire, or if it's not thick enough, it won't fire, or if it's just right, it'll slow down the stapling. So there's an element of intelligence and independence and autonomy there. Level 3 is something like the ligature device. You have multiple options to choose from. You have 3 different buttons depending on how big the vessel is. The device will sense it and will take longer to seal the vessel. So that's an example of level 3. Level 4, cardiac ablation. When they do it in the intracardiac, when the cardiologist threads it in, the robot will actually take over. The device inside the heart will sense an area that needs to be ablated and do it autonomously. The cardiologist is just waiting while the robot works. Does anybody know level 5, full autonomy, strong AI? I love to ask this because people don't think about it, but it's actually been around for decades. And in the interest of time, I'm just going to jump right into it. The AIC device, AICD device, the automated implantable cardioverter defibrillator. It senses a problem, a life-threatening problem, and it gives a life-threatening treatment completely independent from human control. So, you know, whether we like to believe it or not, artificial intelligence is here, and you know, that's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful device. We shouldn't be afraid of it, but we have to know that it's here, and that more examples of this are coming. So we also need to know if we want to get to more autonomy in the operating room, because personally I do, for a lot of the issues that Dr. Park mentioned. We need to know the different classes based on risk of new medical devices. So level 1, believe it or not, is surgical instruments. That's the lowest level of risk. Level 2 are things like CT scanners, ultrasound probes, and contact lenses, because they're in contact with the body, a little bit longer. Class 3 includes hemodialysis and implants, and Class 4 includes things like AICDs and pacemakers. So how does AI affect all of this? These are the classification systems in Canada, the United States, and European Union. They're essentially the same, essentially 1 through 4, essentially 4 different classifications. So, what about devices that have some autonomy in them? I don't know if you can see that, you probably can't, but I think things that have some level of intelligence, like a stapler with a sensor on it, should actually have a lower class, maybe class 0. We should encourage industry to give us more intelligent instruments, but maybe something that has full autonomy, like an autonomously functioning robot, should actually have, you know, be the highest level of risk and should have a different classification. We actually wrote an ethics paper on it, a white paper that discusses this. It's going to be published shortly if it gets accepted in our journal. So it's important to know that there are many, many robots in different parts of the world. So most current robotics are all just telemanipulators. I'm just going to go through these quickly. They're essentially split up into multiple robotic arm systems, single port robotic systems, and endoluminal systems, and they're all telemanipulators, all level 1, low level autonomy. So you have Da Vinci. You have Versius, multiple arms. You have Avatera, multiple arms. Surgeon at the console. You have BitTrack. You have Senhance. I believe that's, I can't remember where that's from. You have Hugo from Medtronic. You have Dexter. You know, these are being used in different parts of the world already on patients. You have Intuitive single port. It's coming. You have Vicarious, single port, telemanipulator, Enos, Mira. You have Hominis. This is single port and endoluminal. And then you have multiple different endoluminal telemanipulators coming. Ion, Monarch, Colubris, MX. So what future do we want? This is the crux of the issue. Do we want Star Trek or Star Wars? This is really the easiest way I can explain it. So do you want, in Star Trek, they always represent the surgeon at the bedside in contact with the patient, new generation, same thing. Star Wars, what happens? This is what everyone's afraid of. A robot doing the entire operation. Is this the future that we want? Is this the type, you know, a patient screaming in the middle of the room while these robots operate on this poor person without anesthesia because apparently they lost the technology and how to do that in the future. We need to decide this because personally, I'm a fan of Star Trek and I think that's the way we should go. All right, so this is why we wrote that white paper on artificial intelligence and autonomous actions. And I recently published an editorial that talks about this, saying why artificial intelligence surgery is better than current robotic-assisted surgery, because it's not just a telemanipulator. We're going to have autonomy, we're going to have computer vision, we're going to have assistants in the operating room to help us do surgeries safer, better, and maybe to do surgeries that we can't even do. Okay, so future directions. Do we want robots or collaborative robots? In industry, they use collaborative robots, where a human is manipulating a robot to do a task more efficiently. So we have examples of this. The Maestro, I have to mention I am a consultant for Maestro. This is Brice Gaillet. He's the deviser of this concept. You have a robot holding a camera. You have another robot holding a retractor. Now imagine two robotic arms holding the surgeon's arms where he's working. That they're gonna, when you let go of the instruments, it holds instruments in place. It has a little viscosity. You're in contact with the patient. You can do more complex things. If you have a bleeder, or if you're working on the vasculature, maybe ergonomically, maybe this is better. Maybe this will enable us to do more things, and we need to know that this is an option. Another example of this is Dexter, right? The surgeon stays sterile, so can go back to the console and come to the operating room back and forth. So this is also another way of doing robotics that we need to be aware of. So I think in the future, a mixture is really probable. I do think the Da Vinci and Versius and things like that are great in the pelvis, so you don't have to straddle the patient like that ambitious urologist. I think we need to study and learn more about non-console robotic systems. I didn't have time, but I talked about it yesterday about handheld robotics, like the stapler, like the Handex, you know, these robotic instruments that you hold, surgical instruments. I think they may have advantages when vascular reconstructions are needed, when you're doing more complex surgeries. This is a whole paper I was asked to write for censors on this whole topic, artificial intelligence surgery, how do we get to autonomous actions? You can go delve into all the papers around the world that have been working on this as far as machine learning, deep learning, computer vision, and natural language processing. There's a lot of work out there. So I encourage you to get someone on staff who has experience in artificial intelligence, maybe have one of your younger consultants get a master's degree in artificial intelligence, maybe even a PhD. We found that computer vision was really further ahead in this than any of the other aspects of artificial intelligence. We wrote another paper on specifically advances in computer vision and what we need to do to get to more autonomous actions in surgery. So in about 30 seconds, now I can talk about this topic. What does exist already, commercially available? We have vessel sealing, stapled anastomotic lines that are intelligent, automatic needle placement, motion scaling and tremor reduction. That's like with the microscopic surgery of the neurosurgeons and the ophthalmologists. We have organ segmentation. We also have autonomous laparoscope tracking now, where the laparoscope will follow an instrument, and it's a beautiful thing. It's like hitting turbo on the old video games from the 80s. When you hit the turbo button, you're all of a sudden operating much faster. It's a beautiful thing that already exists. So what prototypes exist? Autonomous aspiration, autonomous retraction, autonomous debridement, autonomous suturing and anastomosis, the STAR robot from Active Surgical, I believe. There's autonomous knot tying that already exists in the prototype phase. But what do we need in the future? It's still in the theoretical stage. We need situation awareness. We need the robot to understand what's happening. Is there bleeding? What's actually going on? Phase recognition. What part of the operating room, or what part of the procedure am I doing? It's difficult for the robot to have memory, so they're working on that. Autonomous pneumoperitoneum access. How do you start a surgery? I'm actually working on a company with that in Germany called Surag. And autonomous dissection, that's going to be the most difficult. But as I said in the beginning, Da Vinci has already been recording all of your robotic procedures, and they know your instrument priors. I don't know if they have the video also, but they are working on this. There's actually groups on the internet that are asking you to send you their videos, to send them your videos so that they can start working more on autonomous dissection. So this is just a much more complicated Gardner hype cycle, which is in that review article in Sensors that I talked about, that talks about a lot of these different issues like virtual navigation, virtual reality, augmented reality. We don't have time, so I'm just going to wrap it up. Current AI in surgery includes machine learning to help with clinical decisions and efforts at natural language processing to help with the acquisition of data, which is going to be great for us because we really don't have good data yet. Advances in computer vision are creating the greatest leaps forward, and they're the most visually easy to appreciate. Intraoperative surgery that utilizes AI are autonomous actions, and perhaps the most exciting aspect of AI for surgeons, at least it is for me. So I thank you very much, and I'm sorry I ran them over.
We have some questions.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. Puts us into the realm of Star Trek and Star Wars. But I would prefer a sexier surgery than any of those because of the cost and the intensity, technical intensity that would be required to support any robot. I would buy a robotic butler for sure, but not robotic surgery. Thank you.
So I hope you never need an AICD.
Sure.
Or a pacemaker for that matter.
Andrew, we have to move on, but a wonderfully stimulating presentation. In 2 seconds, what are we going to do about this garbage in, garbage out? What are we going to do about the corrupt data, the problem with the quality of the data? How do we fix that?
I think we need a dedicated data scientist in every department of surgery. Because right now, all the data that we're generating, all the papers, all the clinical trials, everything that's not a randomized controlled trial is essentially garbage.
It's a real problem. Thank you so much. Very stimulating presentation. Our next speaker